So I'm back in the workshop and I'm just getting my doors finalised before I hang them now. 100 kilo doors, they're going to need some serious hinges. So I'm not using a butt hinge, I've mentioned before that I'm going with something else. And this is the hinge, it's by a company called Simon's Works, and it's basically mortised into the door and the frame. And it's an amazing mechanism. It's a 3D hinge, it's got all kinds of adjustments so I can do up and down and slightly in, slightly out, and sort of throw it in and out from the frame as well. So basically to put these in, it's a two-stage routing process. I'm using a medium-sized router. This is a 1400 watt router. I had to get a 12.7mm extension collet because the jig is designed to go onto the edge of the door and into the rebate of a frame. Now it takes a bit of a while to set it up, and if it's the first time you use something like this, then you have to refer to the instructions. Now, Simon's Works do all manner of hinges. These are called Tectus, of different sizes to do different weights, etc., different door thicknesses. They do them with inch-resistant strips and everything else. So there is a series of plates which are relative to the hinges that you're using. In my case, I've got two plates. This is the first plate, which the 30mm guide bush follows, and I do the first recess to 10mm in. And the second one, I take this one out, I pop the next one in, and I go to 36 on the door, 36.5 on the frame. I don't know whether that half a millimetre makes a big difference, but that's basically what they ask you to do. So setting this up is a bit of a faff first time, but once you've done it, you know, you kind of like realise all the quirkiness about it. I mean, I've done a couple of mods. I've added a section of timber here to make sure that it doesn't go out of square, and I'm making sure I'm really nice and square on these shoulders here, and it's worked really well. I've got a couple done. I'm going to get on and do this one as well. I'm using a 24mm tooth flute cutter, nothing out of the ordinary. The only thing I did find though, to get the depth, the final routing depth, that the collet, the extension collet, was kissing the shoulder of the first cut, so I had to tweak it. So the actual cutter would be better if it was slightly longer, but this was the only one I could actually find. So you know, this is the thing, I actually mocked it all up, and that's where I saw that the collet was just kissing the shoulder, so I just had to rejig it all. The good thing about using a router, I mean, it would be impossible really to do this, you know, by hand. It wouldn't be impossible, but I mean, it's going to take forever. And I did contemplate making my own jig, but I'm pushed for time. So Simon's Works actually loan these out. Obviously you have to hire them because they're high precision. You could buy them, but if you're not using them all the time, it's a big investment. It works really well, I might add. The other thing is I just run through how I set the router up for this. So let's start by, the router is now fully extended. So I'll drop this in to the jig, I'll loosen it off, press it down against the door. Now I know the cutter is hitting the edge of the door, and on this Festool router, it's got a very accurate depth facility. So I drop this down to that stop, and that is on 0. I've got that set on 0. So I know 0 is the edge of the door. The first recess I need is 10mm. So it's a matter of sliding this up to 10mm, locking it off, and that is it. So I did my mock-up, I checked it with a steel rule, and it's bang on 10mm. And then for the second pass, when I use the next template, I move it up to 36, and it's absolutely perfect. So it's really quite nice. There's 0.10 of adjustment there as well in millimeters. I've got the speed set medium high. It would have been nice to probably have an industrial router on something like this, something with a little bit more power, but this is absolutely adequate. I'll try and film some of this now and see what you think. So you might have noticed I've got this t-shirt on which says North Bennet Street School. Now, they reached out to me. This is the oldest craft and carpentry school in America. It's in Boston, Massachusetts, And one of the lecturers there of the carpentry course called Peter called me up and said, would I be happy to do a Zoom? I'd never done a Zoom before, it's my first Zoom, with the students and the apprentices, etc. I said I'd happily do that. So we had about 2 hours on the phone one evening, and they bombarded me with questions. And a couple of weeks later, I got a little package through the post, and I got this lovely t-shirt and also some pencils, carpentry pencils, and some notebooks, which you can never have enough of. So that's the school. So this video is a big shout out to them too. Thanks for having me. Thanks for sending me these gifts. It was really nice of you. And you can see I've got it on now for these doors. So I'm just about to carry on with the routing process. I'm just putting the second plate in now. So I've done the first section. This is the second section. Now, as I say, this jig has been loaned to me by Simon's Work, and it's, you know, a little worn in places, and I found I needed a 1mm spacer just to keep it all nice and flat and true so the router didn't wobble around. Now, so I've actually set the depth for the final thickness here, but what I will do is do it in about 4 or 5 passes. So although I'm going to around about 36 odd millimeters, I've already gone through the 10, so it's about 26 mil. So I'm doing it about 6 or 7 mil a pass. It's just, it's got a big cutter on it, and I don't want any breakout. So a little tip, if you're doing anything like this, before you remove the jig, inspect it, make sure you're happy with it, because you don't want to try and reposition this exactly afterwards. The only good thing about this jig, it has a locating pin, and that locating pin, when you've got your centre line of the hinge, so we work on a centre line, is you simply guide that through and you can line it dead up. So I really like that, it's very, very precise. So let's have a look at that now. Let's take that off there. Remove that out of the way and take my little bit of extra stock off that holds it. We'll pop one of the hinges in. There we have it. So the hinge sets in there, and it's just down about 3 mil because we have in the packet some really nice polished plates, which are then going to go over the top once, and they finish it all nice and flush. So that's basically the hinge. You might be thinking, why is it not in the center of the door? So the geometry has been worked out for, it's around about 4 millimeters from the edge of the door. So regardless of the thickness of door, so if you're using a standard exterior door, it's about 44 mil. You can see it's then roughly in the center. So they do a hell of a lot of work. We're going to actually fix this right into the core of the door, right through the frame. So you can see just how lovely they are. Look at that. That is going to be the absolute business. We have managed to get between us the first door from what is our current workshop all the way down here. It's over 100 kilos, but we made a stretcher for it from some CLF, which is nice and light, nice and strong. We've covered that in a rubber tape to stop any marking and stop it from slipping while we did the 100-meter walk from A to B. So what you got here is the CLS bench with the tape on top, and this tape is exactly the same as what I use on my decking. So check out that video soon and you'll see that in use. So the next job I've got is to put the Simon's Works hinges in, fix them on, then we'll lift the door carefully into position, put it on the airbags, fix it into the frame, and that's the first one swinging. So that'll be an interesting job.
So once all of the preparation was done, it was just a matter of slotting them into the frame. Didn't catch a lot of this footage. It was a bit clumsy and hard to film and do it at the same time. You know what it's like, I just want to get the job done. Thanks for joining me. See you soon.